Today, I have the honor to present Professor Abdelhadi Al-Khalili. He's a full professor of neurosurgery from Iraq. He's one of the founder of neurosurgery in Iraq. He has a huge experience in research and building department from zero, and how to manage neurosurgery in difficult situations through war, through limited resources. And he's now in United States, and he's very supportive for young people, for young talents, let's say, within the science in general, and has a very unique approach in his career. I call it always, this is the encyclopedic approach. And actually we have a paper describing Dr. Khalili approach to neurosurgery and how uniquely he advanced through all his phases and steps, and combining neurosurgery with all the possible surrounding scientific field. This is a unique experience. I will invite you to have the paper about him describing his work, and I think I will share it with you because it's already free in the Surgical Neurology International. I will share the link for the paper, and you can read more about that technique. And Dr. Khalili agreed to be with you to share some thoughts that he think it will be helpful for you as a new generation aspiring to be a scientist and a doctor, maybe surgeons in the future. So welcome, Dr. Khalili, and the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. It's really a great honor and pleasure to be with you in this Neurosurgery TV. Thank you so much, sir, for this opportunity. And thank you, Samer, for the introduction, which was more than I think I deserve.
Well deserved, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry I have cough, so I may be interrupted with cough at occasions. I hope not.
No problem.
I'm really pleased with your mentorship, with your initiative to get such wonderful colleagues, young colleagues, trying to pursue the real path of research and ethical research, and to be on the right steps from the beginning, which is really the real hope of us to be fruitful and to possibly proceed with the outside world research standards. My presentation would be something general. Sure. Yeah. So this is just highlights, in fact, of some basic ideas and our research challenges in the difficult days we went through, as Samer was referring to. If I give you $1, you give me $1, each one has $1. But if I give you one idea, you give me one idea, each one has two ideas. So giving ideas to each other is really richness to both parties. What's research? The systematic, although I don't need to tell you about this, you all know about this very well, but I just remind you of what I have in mind. It is a systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. And why do research? Research allows you to pursue your interests. Research makes you learn something new. Research will widen the scope of your problem-solving skills. Research will challenge yourself in new ways. And with research, you can do your research alone or in a large team. You don't need to be with team, you can do it on your own. Single-handed versus multi-institutional. You don't need to shell yourself with your specialty. You have to join other specialties and then make wider research. You could conduct your research in a library in a museum, a laboratory, or community. And your research problems could be aesthetic, social, political, scientific, or technical. You choose the tools, gather and analyze the data, report your findings to a wider audience, so they will benefit from that. So again, with diligent and systematic inquiry or investigation to discover revise facts, theories, or application. This revised facts is very important because things which are facts today may be not facts tomorrow. So two examples of these revising facts. First example, Antonio Egas Moniz. In 1935, Moniz advocated lobotomy, surgery to treat psychosis and mental health conditions such as depression. It was seen as a miracle cure for mental illness. Moniz was awarded Nobel Prize in 1949 for that surgery, for that approach. The surgery causes most of the connections to and from the anterior part of the frontal lobe of the brain, cognitive centers, to be severed. What happens? It was stopped in the 60s, and even some advocated to revoke the Nobel Prize from Dr. Moniz. And you can see this movie, possibly some of you have seen this movie, A Man Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest by Jack Nicholson. It represents the problems happened after that surgery. Just by the way, Moniz had introduced for the first time in history angiography in 1927. And he used the substance thorotrust as a contrast. And then this thorotrust was discovered to be carcinogenic. And I have seen one of the cases when I was in Scotland of cancer of the liver caused by thorotrust. So again, this was abandoned. So it was fact at one time, but then by implementation and revision, it was found not a good fact. Another example is the thalidomide. In 1950s, commercially named thalidomide, the miracle drug it was called. It was used to treat morning sickness during pregnancy. And everybody really was happy with that. And then they discovered that it produces massive congenital anomalies. So, and then in the 60s, it was abandoned, and this fact was not a real fact, it was a bad fact. I have two examples of inspiring stories. First example, Hermann von Helmholtz. He's a German doctor. In the 19th century, he's a mathematician. Well, a fan of mathematics, but he was forced by his parents to go to medicine. So he used his talent in medicine and mathematics in medicine when he graduated. When he was teaching in medical school, one of the students asked him, "Sir, you say that we see with our eyes when light goes into the eye. Why do we see the eye black when there is light in it when we can see something?" And he said, "For 2 nights I could not sleep thinking of that question." And then it triggered an idea, and then he revolutionized ophthalmology by improvising an invention of the ophthalmoscope. And what he did, he just brought a candle near the head of the patient, of the person, and then a mirror with a hole inside it, so he can reflect the light inside the eye, that through that hole he can see the retina. And then when he saw the retinal artery, he was shouting that I am the first man in the mankind history to see a living artery of the human body. So that's the ophthalmoscope which he invented. Eventually was modified, of course. The other example is Claude Bernard from France. Claude Bernard is the father of experimental medicine. In fact, his book, The Experimental medicine, studying experimental medicine, supposed to be one of the important books in mankind history. I have the Arabic translation of that book. It's an amazing book, really. At that time, in the second half of the 19th century, he was amazing. He had so many discoveries. One of the important discoveries is the extracellular environment, the homeostasis, that your temperature will remain the same. Your all electrolytes will be the same around the cell in spite of any changes happens to you outside that cell. So he discovered that. But the main thing in this area is he was working in the lab, and then the lab attendant brought him a batch of rabbits. And because he was busy, he asked the attendant just to put the rabbit on the table, which he did, and then he left. So the rabbits urinated on that table, and it happens that there was litmus paper on the table where it was changed color with the urine of the rats. So the urine was acidic. And as he has prepared mind, he immediately clicked why this urine of the herbivorous animal be acidic, why it should be alkaline. So he called the attendant again. He said, what's happening? Have you brought these rabbits from different places? He said, no, the same place. And then he discovered that the rabbits were starving for 8 hours. He was going around until he came to Claude Bernard. So he gave the rabbits the food and then starved them again. When he gave them the food, the urine turned again to be alkaline. And then starved them again for 8 hours or so, and then it turned to acidic. So, and then he went to his horse. The horse, of course, is herbivorous. So the horse urine was alkaline, and then he starved the horse for so many hours, and then tested his urine and it was acidic. And then from there, he put the theory of catabolism. When you are herbivorous and you are starving, so you will be carnivorous because you will eat your own meat, your own flesh. So with that limitation of facilities of research at that time, they created such important foundation of research. It's interesting to note that Charles Holland Duell, he was the commissioner of the United States Patent Office from 1898 to 1901. You'll be surprised that Mr. Duell stated in 1902 that everything has been invented, can be invented, has been invented. So we don't need to this office. We have to close this office of patents. Now, coming to some personal research ideas and challenges. I must emphasize that in the 60s, research culture in Iraq was developing. And later in the 90s, 80s, 90s, until 2003, Iraq was involved in wars and sanctions, and pursuing research was a real challenge because of lack of facilities, lack of time, lack of interest. People try to survive, really, to try to get food and something to help their children with. It was a difficult time, but nevertheless, you can pursue if you have the dedication and you can do things. As my boss used to say, if you want something to be done, ask a busy man to do it. Because a busy man is so organized, he can fit your request in between, but the one who has nothing to do, he will postpone it till tomorrow or next week. We have plenty of time, don't worry, I will do it. One of the projects was treating resistant epilepsy. Now, what's epilepsy? It's the focus of excessive electrical discharge, swarming rapidly to surrounding areas of the brain, causing seizures. This is a known fact, of course. Dr. Adrian Upton in Canada, McMaster, I knew in 1978, in fact, that he postulated that a feedback of the brain for resistant epilepsy may help minimizing the bad effect of resistant epilepsy. So with the University of Technology, I started a project we bought electroencephalogram to the University of Technology, and then with the help of, there was a master student, we gave him the project, and with the help of our colleagues there in electrical engineering, control engineering, we had the project of analyzing the EEG, the electroencephalogram, and filtering it into 4 waves, basic waves of the EEG. And then they transformed the waves from wave to sound, and from wave to light. And Dr. Upton's idea was, if the patient hears his alpha waves, he will calm down, and then his epilepsy will be probably minimized, resistant epilepsy. And so this is the idea, it was there, but of course it was not implemented. We just did this research, but we continued the research in different way. I was dreaming of treating epilepsy on the principle of lightning protection system. When the electrical charge comes from the cloud, will be sucked out by this lightning protection system to earth, and then it will minimize the damage of the electricity. So can we have a portable earthing, and we can put the probe on the area which we diagnose, the focus, and then we try to see if we can do that. There is a company in England, that was in 1980, in England, a company called Thackeray. They was interested, but then I had to come back to Iraq with the war, and everything was really disrupted. But then I started with the group of 4 electrical engineers in the Scientific Research Council in Iraq. We worked for 2 years, or maybe more than 2 years, about the project, hoping to get something about this. And they worked really very, very hard, these young engineers. But in 1989, unfortunately, the whole Scientific Research Council was cancelled. And then all the project was really went astray. But nevertheless, one lady, a girl, engineer, young engineer, very bright one, Francis Balsis, she got a master's degree with the detection of an early detection of epileptic attack. And we published this 2 papers in scientific journals. In 1982, we did head injury in rabbits with the Professor Mourgash from Czechoslovakia at that time, and Professor Sahib al-Musawi. And there was our master's student, Dr. Ali Abdel Latif, is a very bright guy. He is now in Australia, professor there. And he did the real great work with our supervision, and then studying the physiological changes of head injury in rabbits. Again, that paper was published in a peer-reviewed journal. And then 1985, with the professor of computer sciences, we worked on diagnosing causes of back pain by the computer. So you can sit on the computer, in front of the computer, and then computer asks you, and you answer yes or no, yes or no. All the answers yes or no, and then it takes you to different tracks until you reach a conclusion. It was something simple, but at least was an attempt. And the guy who was having the master's, he got his PhD again in the similar line. And then he was leading figure in the Ministry of Higher Education. The other project, which is interesting and painful, we know that the third cranial nerves, among other nerves in the moving the eyeball, it has the main function of moving the eyeballs. When there is damage of the third cranial nerve for any reason, a trauma or after surgery or tumor or whatever, third nerve may regenerate, but in a disgeneration fashion. The fibers will go to different nerve fibers to supplying different muscles. So the function of the nerve which elevates the eye here, for instance, it will not elevate the eye here. It will take it down and out. So this is called aberrant regeneration or disgeneration. So I thought, why is this? Well, discussed with Professor Mahmoud Hayawi Hamash, Professor of Anatomy at that time, a leading researcher. And then we planned a very well planned project with the help of a German neuropathologist and a British neurologist. We studied rabbits, and I used to open the orbital of the rabbit and go back to the orbital apex and crush the third nerve. And that surgery was difficult, really not easy surgery, because the rabbit is not a good animal, experimental animal. The range of anesthesia is very narrow. If you give more, the rabbit will die. If you give less, it will jump. And then there is a cavernous sinus at the orbit apex. And then if you touch that orbital sinus, the blood loss will kill the animal. So we did 12 animals successfully. And we marked them with their ears, and everything was fine. And we were watching the progress of those animals. After 1 year, we came to analyze and to get the results and the neuropathology to be sent to Germany. And then we discovered that all the rabbits were distributed to different research projects by the attendant of the animal house, and all the project collapsed. So my response was, I just smiled, and because this is not unexpected in our culture, unfortunately, or society at that time. So that happened, but nevertheless, we didn't care about that. So we followed the myth of the phoenix, and with Mahmoud Hayawi again, we started spinal cord regeneration in rats, and we did work which took us about a year and a half, and then we published the work in paraplegia in UK, and it was something I think worth mentioning. And then after that, a young lady from the College of Veterinary Medicine, she was doing her PhD under my supervision, and again, a professor of surgery at the College of Veterinary Medicine. And we did that on dogs, and we had really good results. There is some debate about the methodology, but the results were really amazing. Now, in Iraq, we have a problem with hydatid cysts. Maybe now minimized these days, but this cyst is called cancer of Iraq by one of our professors of surgery in Iraq, because, well, it comes from tinea, lives in the bowel of the dogs, and then the ova comes from outside with the feces. When it dried, it will be taken by the sheep, or directly will come with the grass or with the vegetables to the human. The problem with hydatid is this is the cyst, and you can see these dots inside it. Each dot can produce, or each cyst can produce thousands of hydatid cysts like this one here. And this can affect the brain, the eye, the lung, every part of the body except the tooth. Any part of the body, it can be affected by the cyst. The trick of surgery is to try to take the cyst out without being ruptured. And this is not an easy task. So many times it ruptures, but for that we put all sorts of goes around the cyst area soaked with so many things, and then hoping that will help. That never helps, in fact, radically. So what I thought of is taking the idea of this children's pistol, where this part comes and stuck to the wall by vacuum. So I thought of having something like this shower, and then having this all shower-like, and there is a sucking system inside, and then making vacuum here. So when this is stuck on the cyst by continuous vacuum, you penetrate the cyst and evacuate all the contents of the cyst, and then the wall will still stuck to the instrument, and then you can take everything out, because the cyst is not attached to the surrounding tissues. It is just free inside the tissue. And from there, orbital hydatid. I'm interested in orbit, as Samer knows, and established a center in Iraq called Orbital Surgery Center, and possibly my series of hydatids of the orbit, one of the biggest series available in the literature. So the problem with orbital hydatid, you see, this is the orbit here in the skull, and that's the orbit, thick bones around the orbit, and then fat behind the eyeball. In CT scan, when you do CT scan, excuse me, when you do the CT scan, the orbital hydatid will show like the tumor. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Because it is hidden in my case with the pictures. Okay, yeah, sure. So you can see the density by CT scan is the same. While if you take the liver hydatid or the brain hydatid, it's different density. It is water. It looks like water, but this is tumor. So I thought, why is this? Is it because the pressure inside the cyst is high as it is in closed box? Or the nature of fluid is different? Or because of the location of the cyst itself? So the first thing I did, I contacted Amu Baba. I know Amu Baba, the father of football in Iraq, soccer. And I asked him for an old football, which is made of two parts, leather on the outside and tube inside. So my idea was to push water inside the tube, inside the ball, the rubber ball inside, push it more water than it can accommodate, so that will not rupture because of the wall of the outside wall of the leather. I couldn't get it, unfortunately, but nevertheless, I want to proceed with gloves, just ordinary surgical glove. I filled it with tap water, and then made out of that small ball to put in the orbit, and this big ball to put in the cranium. And in that case, so the pressure is the same, and then the nature of the fluid is the same. So we are left with one thing only. So I put again some sheets of fat behind the ball, which is in the orbit, to simulate orbital fat, and then did CT scan. And in fact, the CT scan I did at night. Nobody knew about it. And unfortunately, we had an Irish engineer for the CT scan. I called him, and he came with me at night, and then we used to get rid of all the negatives, because everybody then say we are wasting your time, wasting your money on something useless. So what I did, we measured to make sure that in the CT scan both balls are in the same section, and then proved to be this is 27 units and this is 4.5 units. So it is about how much 6-7 times more density on the CT scan in the orbital cyst than the cranial cyst. And this is very important, because if it is a tumor, like is open the cranium like this man, open his cranium to get to the roof of the orbit, to get to the orbit, to get the tumor so-called out, it proved to be cyst, and then you feel really ashamed with yourself. So I then improvised this simple surgery to just anterior surgery. Because of my background in ophthalmology, I can do it on my own, try to get there and then get the cyst out. And then, in fact, I presented this in the international meeting in Atlanta, Georgia, about this and my own way of doing it in 2008. and it was published in Computerized Radiology in the US in 1987. With the primitive facilities we have to work something, because we have acoustic neuroma patient near the facial nerve, and I would like to save the facial nerve. And with the intermingling of all tissues around it, I don't know where is the facial nerve. So I have no monitor, I have nothing to a stimulator to avoid this problem. So with the Professor Abdulsahib al-Musawi, we did a pin, ordinary pin, molded with the thin wire and connected to a stimulator, which he was with me in the theater. And then we did the stimulation to make sure that the facial nerve was not affected. And you can see nowadays what is going on here with the monitoring of the facial nerve during acoustic neuroma removal. After 2013, I retired, but I did not stop doing things. I kept doing things. And then this is the journal I created an organization called Tawfiq, and then Tawfiq made this Tawfiq Journal of Medical Sciences for 3 years. I was the editor-in-chief, and many distinguished friends with me. And then we had activities, one of them, this awards for all graduate students in the US who are distinguished. We can just award them. So enough of that. Let me share with you some principles. Breakthroughs often come from unexpected and surprising areas. So not necessarily to be conventional. You have to think outside the box. And as Louis Pasteur saying, chance favors the prepared mind. One good example of that, Newton, his mind was prepared, and when he saw the apple falling from the tree, it clicked. And the same thing with James Watt when he was with his grandmother, seeing that the top of the kettle, when boiling, it was going up, flapping. So he was thinking of the steam engine, and then he created this steam engine. So his mind was prepared. There were 2 teams trying to climb the very, very high mountain, maybe in the Himalayas. One team reached halfway through, and then they said, well, the oxygen was less than we can afford, we can acclimatize with, so they stopped. The other team, again, for any other reason, they stopped in the way. But then they saw one guy went to the top of the mountain and came down. And then everybody was happy, and the clapping, and then trying to get him to respond to their clapping and the happiness for what he achieved. But he did not care about any one of them because he was deaf. So he did not hear any discouragement. He did what he thought is right. So if he was not deaf, possibly he would have joined the club, the 2 clubs. So believing in what you have in mind is very important. And then the other thing, you may not know that the entrance of Baghdad University has this entrance. Each one, in fact, this represents a cerebral hemisphere. This is a cerebral hemisphere, and there is a gap in the middle. And he called this the open mind. And this gap would never end, would never be filled. So the mind will be always open for information and knowledge. My last thing is, do you know of the chaos theory, the butterfly theory? But this is well improvised by Edward Lorenz in the early 60s. And this is a butterfly which flaps its wings in Brazil. And then there is a tornado will happen because of that in Texas, which is very important to remember.
You heard of the butterfly effect?
The sound okay?
The butterfly effect was a doctoral thesis in 1963 by Edward Lorenz, and it was It was presented to the New York Academy of Sciences and laughed out of the place. It's crazy. The butterfly effect stated that a butterfly could flap its wings on one side of the world and set molecules of air in motion that moved other molecules of air that would eventually move other molecules of air that could eventually create a hurricane on the other side of the planet. The butterfly effect. It was nuts, but it was interesting. And because it was so interesting, it hung around forever in urban legend and movies and books until finally physics professors in the mid-90s proved the butterfly effect was accurate and viable, and it worked every time. And not just with butterflies either. It worked with any form of moving matter, including people. They gave it the status of a law. Just like the law of gravity, the butterfly effect is now known as the law of sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. And it works every time. See, Chamberlain is a human example of the butterfly effect. One guy who made one move 140 years ago whose effect still ripples through our lives today. And you are no less an example of the butterfly effect than Chamberlain was. Everything you do matters. Every move you make, every action you take matters not just for you or your family or your hometown. Everything you do matters to all of us and forever.
Yeah. So at the end, I say thank you. And that's my email, and that's my website. If anybody is interested to communicate and to have a look at my website, where you see a few other things there on the website. And thank you so much.
Outstanding.
Thank
Thank you, Professor. It's very inspiring and in many different perspectives. Connecting the past with the present with the future, and yeah, research wise, science wise, medicine in general wise, and even in life, this is really outstanding. What I have in mind is that I think many of what you start already, and for some reason it's not finished, I think it's still a viable option. I would like to ask a question in front of a student, and this is very important, I think, as part of our mentorship, is that based on what we know about you, Professor, and what you present from today, we would love to ask why you choose neurosurgery.
Oh, well, this is a long story. First of all, I wanted to be a doctor when I was 11-year-old. And then I wanted to be, and then I failed twice in my life. So in the third year of intermediate school, I failed. I couldn't go to the science, where you have 3 lines there: science, humanity, or commercial. So for one reason or another, I failed to go for science. So I went to commercial, but I was heartbroken because I want to be a doctor, not a commercial guy, businessman. So I worked hard in my 4th year in high school. High school is only 2 years at that time. And I was exempted from the exam, final exam. I was the top of the class. So I went down back to examine as external student for the 3rd year. They went then to the 4th year, while my colleagues went to the 5th year of commercial. I didn't mind of losing a year. So then I I finished my high school, and then I applied for medical school. I was denied that because my marks were one mark less in total. So I went to engineering, electrical engineering. When I was there in the class, first class, one of the guys beside me, he said, did you hear about the medical school? They are opened the door for new students to come to apply. So I got my papers and went running really from place to place. And then I reached there and then I applied. I was accepted. And the first year I was delinquent. I failed in biology. And then I passed that, and then I went to second. And then when I started second year, I started to feel the medicine properly. And then after that, I was climbing up the steps. And in 6th year, of course, I was the top graduate of the medical school. And I wanted to be a surgeon all the time. But somebody convinced me to go to ophthalmology because we didn't have any higher graduate in ophthalmology in Iraq at that time. Nobody with fellowship or board, American board. So she said, you can carry the task and you can go there. So I applied for ophthalmology and I went to Baghdad Eye Hospital and I worked there. But after 2-3 months, I didn't find myself to be really in ophthalmology. So, because my dream was this magic relation between the doctor and the patient, and find myself as an ophthalmologist. This is my philosophical feeling, that I'm a scientist rather than a physician, because I'm dealing with fact, dealing with cataract, dealing with the bleeding in the retina or something like that, not a human being. Nevertheless, so I stayed in ophthalmology, worked in Hilla as ophthalmologist, and then I went to England to work ophthalmology. While I was in ophthalmology, I decided to quit. But by the way, I was accepted in 1971. I applied to different places in the world in ophthalmology and accepted in mass eye and ear without interviews. They just sent me the paper, the application, and I was accepted to start in 1974. To work in Ann Arbor ophthalmology. Nevertheless, so when I was in England doing ophthalmology, I decided to stop there. And just by sheer chance, a friend of mine who was working in the university hospital nearby in ENT, he said, well, there is a place here for neurosurgery. Do you want to apply? I said, okay, I will come. So I went there to apply, and then the interview was completed with the other people. And I was just very late in my application. But they nevertheless, because of that guy and his senior, they accepted to see me, and then they gave me the post. So from there, I started to love neurosurgery and worked in neurosurgery, and really was... reached. It is. I'm not being bragging, but that you were the best doctor we had for the past 15 years. The secretary said he put it for the past 20 years, but that's he said then that will include me, so make it 15 years. Yeah. So that's how I came to neurosurgery. But then, and I linked between neurosurgery and orbital surgery, and as you know, I created this orbital surgery center, and then with some good experience in that field.
Yeah.
So I think that's a lesson. Maybe, excuse me to interrupt. That's a lesson for young people: never accept defeat and failure. If you have a decision, go for it.
It's a viable example, yeah, of what failure can mean for people who want to achieve. And at the same time, I think having different background will give you an advantage when you are later in the field. Let's say, for example, if you have any background in any other field, it will be maybe an additive thing that you can add to neurosurgery when you are a neurosurgeon. And I think, yeah, you give a very direct and good example about have an ophthalmology background, then you went to neurosurgery, then I think you bring the orbital surgery to the hands of neurosurgeon. And in addition to creating that center, it's for me, I grow and I know that orbit means neurosurgery. And I think that's an outcome for the actually the big efforts already done. I have one last question to end that part of our session from my side, is there any specific advice if I am a medical student, I'm practicing now in, let's say, in Mosul, in Bahrain, and I want to be a neurosurgeon. I'm not deciding yet where I would be a neurosurgeon. Is there any thing that you need to advise me, for example, in this scenario?
Yeah, well, I used to advise, I will address this question to my colleagues in Iraq, junior colleagues. I told them that to be qualified as a neurosurgeon, wherever you are, in Iraq, or in Pakistan, or in Bahrain, or in UK, or in USA, isn't important to have these few letters behind after your name. But the main thing is to be distinguished. The main thing is to be to pursue a subspecialty. You need to be distinguished in a subspecialty. You have to pursue subspecialty. Because if you go general, nobody will listen to you. I told them something, an example of that. I told them I'm a neurosurgeon. When I went to Moorfields Eye Hospital and Hammersmith Hospital to give a talk there, if I talk to them about neurosurgery, nobody will listen, because their experience and the massive number of cases they deal with is much more than what we can offer. So we cannot offer them much. But everybody was listening when I told them about orbital surgery, because this is subspecialty. And same thing with you, Samer. When you talk about vascular surgery, this is something people will listen to. But if you talk about general neurosurgery, not many people will listen. So the main thing is to respect wherever you are. Get the proper training. Get these degrees in that center after your name, and then go for subspecialty and train yourself, and then go to different centers to train in that subspecialty. So that's their main aim. In fact, I am with an idea of, I don't know whether many people accept that or not, with a fast track. A fast track of training to go parallel with general track. A fast track of training, like if you take ophthalmology in general, you take 5 years in ophthalmology resident in the US, and after your medical school and everything, and then work as general ophthalmology, and then you will be specialized in cataract surgery. And when you specialize in cataract surgery, you do nothing, absolutely nothing except cataract. And you don't need to know about anything except cataract. So why the waste of time? You do 5 years in ophthalmology, and then you do training, you do general ophthalmology and go there. Same thing with neurosurgery. You do neurosurgery, and then you want to do endovascular or neurovascular surgery. And then you need to know everything about the neuro, everything about tumors and whatever. When you do endovascular, you don't do anything but endovascular surgery. So I am with the school, I don't know, it is building up gradually, of having two tracks, one general track for everything as is now, and one for people who are interested. We can make special training program for them. So if you were starting endovascular early, you can do research in this field more, you can work in depth in this field, and that same guy with the cataract surgery or the glaucoma surgery, he can do research from early time, and he will really put much advance in the specialty rather than doing some routine things. So this is another point I just wanted to raise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. If any comment from student and questions, we have 7 minutes more concluding this part. Abdulaziz.
Actually, Prof.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Abdulaziz Al Ahmed from King Faisal University from Al Ahsan. Actually, Professor Hadi, thank you very, very much for your great speech, your great story. It's our pleasure and our honor to listen to you about your story. Actually, I had some question for you at the beginning and how you established your way. But in fact, you answered all my questions. Thank you. And thank you for dedicating your time for juniors and for seniors. And that's it.
Well, it's my pleasure, Azizi. Really, it's an honor to be with you. Truly, I'm not exaggerating. To see you, the leaders of our future in our area. This is a real privilege to talk to you and to tell you some of our problems at that time and the difficulties which we have to overcome. So nowadays life is much different and facilities are more, and we're sure you will do miracles in the near future. And there is one Jordanian author, Rox Al-Azaizi, if you know of his name. Rox used to say the leaps of the past were steps, and the steps of the present are leaps. قفزات الماضي خطوات وخطوات الحاضر قفزات. So I'm sure you will leap with your specialty, with your department, with your colleagues in the near future, and you will be good leaders, and we are proud of you all. And of course, we're proud of Samer for his initiative and for great work.
Thank you. Thank you, Abdulaziz. Yeah, Mustafa?
Yeah, my name is Mustafa Ismail. I am a graduate, recent graduate from the University of Baghdad College of Medicine. Thank you, Professor, for your talk. It was really great, like an outstanding, really. Thank you for that. I like the idea of the deaf, how you believe in something and you don't listen. I just this struck me and I will hold it as much as possible to be like one of my principles. Thank you for that. I have one question, Professor. Like when you tackle your problems that you showed us, like for example the hydatisis and how you manage to use this device from the school and kids' devices. Like, do you have a framework how to generate ideas and how then you can go and for example a system how to tackle these problems? Or if you get my idea, like how can you generate idea and solve the problem in general, a framework?
Yeah, first of all, I can see the problem and study the problem and try to see if there is any possible solution. If there is one or more than a way of trying to solve that problem. And then when I see I'm convinced of that idea, I try to explore how can I implement that. For this device, I tell you what happened really. It was, again, another amazing story. I tried to improvise that we don't have any factory there to make prototype. So I went to Suq al-Safafir. I know a friend of there for the copper maker. So they made me that instrument the way I designed it, and then it looked ugly because the color of the copper was not good. And then I went to a friend of mine who works in molding or covering this steel with the nickel to make it look like silver, and he made that, and then it was lost and somewhere. So then I went to this research council. There was a lab there with a glass lab, a guy from Mosul, Muwaffaq, wonderful gentleman, and he worked with me and he made the whole instrument with all the difficulties, 3 tubes, one inside of the other, with the glass. It was really something great. And then I asked a friend of mine in Tasni'a al-Askari at that time, who was a leader in factory making things, and he allocated one of the young engineers to make a prototype with this very, very elegant one. They presented that in a exhibition, a science exhibit in the medical school, where many people came to see, and then it was stolen. So that was the story of the thing. But the main thing is, as I said, you believe in the problem, you know the problem, you believe in the solution, and then you find ways to solve that problem, and then you are convinced with one solution, and then you pursue that, theorize about that, and then you make it as a prototype, and you try to.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mustafa, for the question. Yeah, Zina, one tried to make it a short question, please.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'm Zina Al-Araji, a 5th year medical student at Al Nahrain University, Baghdad, Iraq. First, thank you, Dr. Khalili, for this inspiring presentation. I would like to ask a question. You were able to work and focus on research, although there was a very difficult times during war and having many challenges such as limited resources. How you were able to continue working in these conditions?
Truly, because I was believing in myself, and I know I have a task. I have something to do. It's a responsibility, I think. So, in spite of all the difficulties, that wholeheartedly. And I had some. I was medical service in the army. I did a few other things which I did not mention. Again, stories maybe I'll tell you later on, sometime, other time. So the main thing is really to be, as Jafar was saying, to be deaf and believe in what you believe in and pursue it. Not, I mean, deaf. You have to listen to advices, to criticism, to people who help you. Not completely close your ears from everybody, no, but close your ears from discouraging ideas, discouraging people.
Thank you, Zina, for the question, and thank you, Professor. Unfortunately, we have another invitation for a speaker on a private session in 10 minutes, so I need to end this. And now, I regret I put another speaker after that, because I think students want to enjoy more about this. But yeah, definitely we will have more the chance to listen to your advices and interact with this. I think maybe through the SNI also meetings. I'm really thankful. I'm really happy to have you with us. This means a lot, at least for me, to have a leader and with his vision, and how with this humbleness to talk to students and to understand them and to prepare a presentation that fit for them. This means a lot, and I think it's already appreciated and by the student. We are happy to have you, and we are very, very thankful, and we are thankful for the Neurosurgical TV to make this happen. Thank you, Professor.
Well, thank you so much, Samir. Thanks, Neurosurgery TV. Thank you, sir, for that opportunity. And thank you for all these wonderful audience of our junior colleagues.